at radiojamaica94fm.com. The Jamaica Public Service Company says it has restored service to 83% of customers who lost power during Hurricane Beryl. JPS gave the update this afternoon at a press conference with Energy Minister Darrell Vaz. Our reporter Halshane Burke was there. Now, Halshane, can you tell us what happened?
Thank you very much, Deidre. Now, Chairman and the CEO of JPS, Damian Obilio, says the company is currently working to have that figure of 83% increased to 97% by the end of this week. He says Clarendon, St. Elizabeth and Manchester have been the worst affected, and they remain a challenge in the restoration efforts, particularly in St. Elizabeth, where a number of the poles and areas are in heavily vegetated areas, and it is difficult to access them at this point. He says multiple teams have been deployed to address the issue, particularly in St. Elizabeth, where close to 100% of customers remain offline. He says the priority now will be to get the Black River Hospital online, as once that is online, then it will be easier to cascade it to other areas for the restoration efforts. He admitted, when questioned, that the system is not designed for a Category 4. He says it's designed for a Category 3. So going forward, there will have to be adjustments made to beef up, as it were, to ensure that the next time around, the system will be able to sustain and manage a higher category of a storm. He has discredited any notion of any outside assistance at this point, stating that the resources and the personnel are there within the JPS and the systems are on the island to ensure that restoration effort is done and done efficiently at this time. The opposition had raised concerns. They have been discredited by Mr. Obilio to say, yes, the JPS has the resources and the personnel necessary to ensure that restoration effort goes on the way. That's how it is at the moment. Halshane Burke reporting. Right back to you in studio.
Thank you so much, our reporter Halshane Burke. They're commenting on that meeting between the Jamaica Public Service and the Energy Minister Darrell Vaz, where it has been revealed that 83% of customers who lost power during Hurricane Beryl now have service. Now, Jamaica is to access approximately 16.3 million US or 2.5 billion Jamaican dollars in disaster relief funds from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. This after the government's tropical cyclone policy with CREEF was triggered following Hurricane Beryl. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark made the announcement today after receiving the preliminary model loss and policy payment report from CREEF. He said there was no word yet on whether a payment has been triggered under the government's excess rainfall policy with the risk insurance facility. The policies with the CREEF represent the fourth layer in the government's multi-layered disaster risk financing framework. Last week, Dr. Clark announced that Jamaica will draw on its contingency and natural disaster funds, totaling $4.5 billion, as the first call on financing to fund recovery efforts from Hurricane Beryl. Dr. Clark also indicated that the country may have access to other funds were Jamaica to place a contingent credit claim before the Inter-American Development Bank. Those funds amount to as much as $46 billion. Additionally, the government of Jamaica has a $140 billion precautionary and liquidity line with the International Monetary Fund, where the country to find itself in a cash crunch. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has acknowledged that every climate event pushes Jamaica to borrow. Mr. Holness made the acknowledgement at the launch of NCB's Building Jamaica Better Fund and the Hurricane Beryl Relief Coordination Committee this afternoon. Mr. Holness, while responding to Michael Lee Chin of NCB Financial Group's attempt to sum up and compare previous damage to infrastructure from major weather events, said he is not in a position to disclose the value of the damage caused by Beryl.
And what happened before is that every climate event pushed us into more borrowing. So a part of our debt trap was as a result of having to borrow to recover from climate events. So we're trying to avoid going down that trajectory. But Jamaica has such a great brand that when we are hit by a crisis, global philanthropy and local philanthropy will chip in and help. But that is not going to be enough. That can help you in the 2 or 3 weeks of the crisis, but the country has to have its economic and financial house in order to carry out the recovery.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. In the meantime, the NCB Foundation has committed $20 million to relief efforts following the devastation caused by Hurricane Beryl. Chairman Michael E. Chin also pledged to match donations provided to the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. Donations of up to $150 million will be matched by the NCB Foundation. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the contribution will assist in catering to residents most affected by the hurricane, and a disaster fund website has been established to Jamaicans to Jamaica's relief efforts. Donors may do so at disasterfund.opm.gov.jm. The Prime Minister says the website will serve as the government's centralized source of information and statistics on the impact of Hurricane Beryl. It will also be the single source to accept donations from people wanting to support the national relief effort.
Anyone locally or overseas with a Visa or MasterCard, debit or credit, can go on the site and make a donation. Donations received will be matched by the NCB Foundation. One of the reasons we established this official portal is to provide assurance to persons who want to donate that their donations are going to the right place and will be put to good use. Again, please make sure that you go to the correct website.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. He was speaking this afternoon at the launch of the Building Jamaica Better Fund Hurricane Beryl Relief Coordination Committee at the office of the Prime Minister. Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Floyd Green says the loss from Hurricane Beryl is estimated at more than $1 billion, with the figure expected to increase as assessment of the damage continues. Mr. Green says almost all major crop lines were significantly affected by floodwaters and strong winds. There was also loss of livestock and damage to infrastructure. For the fisheries sector, about 15% of fishing vessels were damaged, along with some sheds and loss of fish pots. Mr. Green says the country will hear more on the loss to the sectors and government support during his presentation in the House of Representatives tomorrow.
Already we estimate that the damage is going to pass $1 billion to the agricultural sector. I hope to outline a program of support tomorrow in Parliament, right? And we have to start now. The good news is that we have kind of institutionalized disaster recovery and disaster management. This one has come very early in the season, which is a very concerning to us because the season has just started. Yeah. Normally these weather events are later down, and this one has been extremely extensive. So we have already started some procurement of inputs.
The Agriculture Minister says he hopes the program of support for farmers and fishers will begin this week. He says additional funds outside of the Agriculture Ministry will have to be sought.
So we that would completely exhaust our production incentive program. So clearly we're going to have a cabinet meeting this morning. That's why I'm in Kingston, and I think clearly all the needs will come to the table, and we will see what can be done.
Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Floyd Green. He was a guest today on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program. And Jamaicans are being urged to, as best as possible, store agricultural produce as these will be scarce over the next 2 weeks. President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Lenworth Fulton, says a clearer picture has emerged of the extent of the losses for farmers during Hurricane Beryl. Plantain, bananas and papaya have been hardest hit. Mr. Fulton says JP Farms in St. Mary lost more than 90% of its bananas. He says certain crops are available in substantial amounts now, but this will be for a brief period.
You're going to see a lot this week of banana, papaya, mangoes, all those that have blown now. But by the next week, next 2 weeks, you will have serious shortage in the marketplace.
What about those things like carrots and onions? Are we going to see those now?
They did not reap them. They are spoiled in the ground because once the carrot is mature, it can't, it takes in water and then it just rots easily. So you will see a lot of carrot in the field now, and they can be used, but by next week we'll have problem. Onion, the same thing.
President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society, Lenworth Fulton, speaking with Radio Jamaica's Sunny Side Up host, Paula and Porter Jones. Mr. Fulton says consumers should expect a further increase in the cost for vegetables.
The vegetable belt in Jamaica runs from sort of north of Kelly, going up through Reckford, that area, going right across to Mackney, Fort George, Savannah, Douglas Castle, crossing over to Cave Valley area and into places like Barrow Bridge, Bohemia, Battersea, Fraser, and Battersea is adjoining to the Clarendon Parish. That's really where you have the vegetable belt, in any town, those areas. And all of those areas are underwater now as we speak. So we will have a serious problem with the prices for vegetables. So if you see them out there this weekend, buy as much of them as possible.
JAS President Lenworth Fulton. The National Works Agency says it has reopened some 94% of roads rendered impossible due to the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Manager of Communications and Customer Service at the NWA, Stephen Shaw, says the agency has received reports of 476 road sections being impacted. He says of that number, 39% have been fully cleared, while another 55% have been reopened to single-lane traffic. Mr. Shaw says some 29 corridors remain impassable, with Hanover, Clarendon and St. Andrew accounting for the majority. At midday today, 6 corridors remained impassable in each of these parishes. All roads in 6 parishes have been fully reopened or are allowing single-lane access. These parishes are Portland, Westmoreland, Trelawney, St. Anne, Kingston and St. Mary. Mr. Shaw says NWA teams, while continuing to be impacted by connectivity issues, are making good progress at the work across the island. He says the teams are working to reopen all roads in the parishes of St. Thomas, St. Catherine, Manchester, St. Elizabeth and St. James. The Jamaica Bankers Association has called for the police high command to intensify its crackdown on hoodlums who have been vandalizing automated banking machines. This followed the theft of a National Commercial Bank ABM in Longville Park, Clarendon on the weekend. Radio Jamaica News was informed that the hoodlums also attacked and vandalized a Jamaica National automated banking machine in Clarendon on the night of the hurricane. Our news team was informed that the thieves got only $26,000 from the vault of the NCB machine, which was later recovered in the Sandy Bay area. In an interview with our news team this afternoon, President of the Jamaica Bankers Association, Audrey Tugwell-Henry, warned that the surge in vandalism will affect services to banking customers.
At least one of our member institutions hit with robbery and attempted robbery of an ABM. So we are calling on all stakeholders to support us in managing the issues of crime and the impact that issue is having on our ability to serve our clients. When we have ATMs at risk, we have to shut those ATMs down. We have to remove the cash from those ATMs. And for as long as the risk exists, that criminal element will be attacking ATMs in these troubled areas and these remote areas, we will have no option but to remove the cash. And so our clients and the Jamaican public will be impacted if they cannot access ABM services in these remote areas. So I'm calling on all stakeholders to work with the industry to contain criminality in the country.
President of the Jamaica Bankers Association, Audrey Tugwell-Henry. The police suspect that a gang operating in Clarendon was behind the attacks on the banking machines. Now, further afield, President Joe Biden, in a letter to congressional Democrats, stood firm against calls for him to drop his candidacy and called for an end to the drama that has torn apart Democrats since his dismal public debate performance. Biden's efforts to shore up a deeply anxious Democratic Party came today as lawmakers returned to Washington confronting a choice to decide whether to work to revive his campaign or try to edge out a party leader. Make or break time for his re-election and their own political futures. Biden wrote in the 2-page letter that the question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now. He stressed that the party has one job, which is to defeat presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump in November. You're listening to the news.